Thank you, Mark. Reports of a wing part and more plane debris on the French island of Reunion should have renewed hopes of learning what really happened to missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Instead, it has increased friction among countries involved in the investigation and denied family members seeking closure.
Joining us now, trial attorney Daniel Gilleon, the founder of the Gilleon law firm in San Diego. He represents a German mother whose teenage son was among the 239 people on board the flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing when it vanished more than 16 months ago. Welcome.
Thank you.
You hope that these families will find some peace, and some people called it closure, but they're not finding that. As I understand it, some of them continue to hope that the plane landed somewhere and the people are alive.
I mean, this is the saddest case I think I've ever had. My client, she hadn't seen her son in a year and a half, and she was waiting for him to arrive that morning when the plane went down. And I asked her the other day how she felt about them finding the part, and she just responded, pain, pain, pain. I mean, what she said is, like, I wanted to hug my son and feed him. That's what she lost. And 520 days later, she's hearing that there's a part a part was found, but then the Malaysian Prime Minister comes out and says, we know this is, we know it went down, we know this is 370. And yet the authorities who were designated to make that determination, they won't do it. So, I mean, I think the Malaysian Prime Minister lost credibility a long time ago with the families, and that's only adding to the misery my client's going through right now.
Well, let's touch on that a little further, the distrust when it comes to the Malaysian Prime Minister saying the things he said initially after the plane went missing. Some of the families believe Malaysia has more to gain if this plane is never found. Why is that?
Oh, I think so, absolutely, because right now all the families are having to look to this thing called the Montreal Convention, which is really a very poor way of recovering anything. It's a law that was meant to kind of help, but the real case here and the facts here lie with that plane on the bottom of the ocean. We need the black box, we need the plane, we need to find out why this thing went down. And I don't think that necessarily Boeing or some of the manufacturers really are going to be better off by having that plane found. Same thing with Malaysian Airlines. I mean, if that black box is found and they can prove that their co-pilot took this thing down for the fourth time in about 6 years, intentional acts by pilots, that could be devastating for Malaysian Airlines. So right now, without that plane being there, they can obfuscate, they can cloud everything, they can deny, and raise a lot of questions as to what happened, and makes it very difficult to prove.
We haven't asked the Malaysian airline authorities to respond to what you're saying, or the Boeing officials. I would suspect they would say that that's not their point of view, but let's set that aside for a second. You think it's important that this was found on French territory. You alluded to the fact that officials have not made a declaration at the strongest level of the Malaysian authorities. Why is it important that the French officials are taking it?
Well, the BEA is very good at what they do. First of all, they're meticulous, are organized, and they're very careful. So they're not going to come out and say this is MH370 until they know for certain, until they've done the testing on the paint. But really, I mean, this is the only 777 missing in the entire world. It's exactly where all the computers said these parts would be a year and a half later. So we all know it is, but I just think it's irresponsible for the Malaysian Prime Minister to come out and say this when the authorities won't say it. They should just let the authorities make the call. The families will then accept that, and they'll start moving towards that closure and simultaneously moving away from having that hope that they're going to find their loved ones.
You're a wrongful death trial attorney, but why is this not the most desired legal action for this international air disaster?
Back to what I was saying before, the Montreal Convention, the rest of the world really doesn't recognize wrongful death is really a recoverable sort of injury. I mean, this is the most devastating thing that anybody can go through, loss of their child. That is by far the worst thing that can happen to anybody, and yet the rest of the world doesn't really recognize that. The United States does, and that's why we're looking for cases that we could bring here in the United States, and those are going to be the product defect cases. And that's going back to where I'm saying before, it would be better for the manufacturers not to find this plane.
Your client's son was one of those men upon who the investigation was sort of focused initially, because he was one of the young men who is accused of coming on with a false passport. What is the truth? What have you discovered?
I understand. Iranian false passport. Oh no, here we go again. But what it was my client, the mother, converted Christianity and left Iran smartly, and had to leave her son behind. A year and a half later, he's also converted, and he's getting out of Iran smartly. And so the only way he can get out of there is fly to Malaysia, and then in Malaysia get the false passport. And he purchased a passport. That was the only way he could get out of Iran, and he needed to get out of Iran because it's not safe to be a Christian there.
I see.
All
Okay.
right. We appreciate you being here once again, Dan Gilleon, a wrongful death attorney and founder of the Gilleon Law Firm in San Diego.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.